This video has everything you need to know for the last game week of the season. Alright, starting off this video as we do with all of these in this series, we've got the top players by position for expected points, and I get all this data from my friends at DraftHound. There's a link in the description for how you can sign up for free to see this data for yourself whenever you like. So top of the list, interestingly for goalkeepers this week, we've got Jordan Pickford. Everton, obviously, definitely improving defensively under Sean Dyche, and they're expected to do quite well with Bournemouth at home being their fixture. Obviously, they're relatively safe now, given they've got a result at the weekend just gone, but I still feel like they need to perform in that game. And for that reason, I'd kind of agree with these expected points. Ramsdale, Johnston, Alisson, De Gea are the top goalkeepers, and you can see the rest on the list there. Trent Alexander-Arnold, as he is most weeks, is the top defender for expected points, followed by Andrew Robertson, Yerry Mina, which is quite interesting, Kieran Trippier, Ben White and Luke Shaw. And again, you can see the rest of the defenders there. On now then to the top midfielders and forwards. In top of the list this week, for all players in fact, is Mo Salah, which is quite interesting. I think just the quality of the fixture, Southampton away, pushes him up in terms of expected points above and beyond Erling Haaland, and the fact he scores more points for goals than Haaland does anyway. I'd also suggest, and it's not factored into these calculations by DraftHound, that just looking at how Man City might line up in game week 38, Mo Salah is definitely nailed to start for Liverpool. I don't think there's a reason he's not going to play in game week 38, but Erling Haaland might not. So I feel like Salah is actually probably the safest captaincy option. We'll get onto that later on. Rashford is second for midfielders. Obviously, if he starts, we'll find out throughout game week 37 and maybe Ten Hag's press conference going into 38 as to how Rashford's doing. Bruno Fernandes, Luis Diaz, who I think is quite an exciting option this game week, Kevin De Bruyne and Martin Odegaard lead the way for midfielders. Haaland, no surprise, he's the top forward. Kane, Wilson, Jesus, Isak and Ferguson lead the way for them. And you can see the rest of the forwards on the list there. Clean sheet odds up next, and I guess it is a surprise. Everton are top for clean sheet odds this game week. It's interesting to see that no team is above 50%, so no team is actually backed. It's suggested that they are more likely than not to keep a clean sheet, which is quite interesting. So not expecting too many points from my defenders this week. Everton top 48% to keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth at home. Arsenal 44 with Wolves at home. Man United 38 with Fulham. Man City 38, Crystal Palace 38, and Liverpool 36. Usually, any team under 30%, I don't usually back for a clean sheet. Already spoken about this, but the top three players for expected points this week are probably the ones you should be considering for captaincy. We'll see what happens with Rashford in terms of his fitness. To be honest, I feel like he was only ill. He was back in training and he's only been ill. We're going into game week 37. He might play the second fixture in 37, but I do expect him to be back for game week 38. The only thing with Rashford, he's got the FA Cup final coming up, and Ten Hag will obviously want his star player this season to be fit for that. So minutes, they could be restricted. I feel like he'll start in 38, just given it was only an illness, and I think he'll be over it by then. But yeah, minutes may be a bit of a doubt. Salah, he's my favourite. You got to think he's going to start, no doubt about it. He's on penalties. They've got an excellent fixture with Southampton away. I know Liverpool don't necessarily have anything to play for, but I feel like with the mentality that Klopp has with his team, they'll still go out all guns blazing and try and rip Southampton apart and score as many goals as possible. I also got a feeling Firmino's a shout as well. If you really want to be punty, it's going to be his last game for Liverpool. Nothing left to play for. I feel like he's going to start. He could, teammates are going to be trying to find him to score goals, basically. So that's another one to consider. But for me, the order is the top three in terms of expected points. Salah is the number one captaincy option. Haaland, obviously being a minute stout, he's number two. Same with Rashford in 3. Now, if you caught my earlier buy and avoid video, you would have seen some of these, all of these players suggested. But these are my top 3, 2 transfer targets and a note on things to avoid. So I think Alvarez is a really sensible transfer in this week. He's proven that he can play both alongside Erling Haaland and in replacement of Erling Haaland. And I feel like the fact that this title's already wrapped up for Man City, and you've got to feel Haaland starts the FA Cup final and the Champions League final. I mean, no doubts about it. Alvarez has got to get some decent minutes in the Premier League coming up. Certainly, second fixture in 37, I think he's going to play. And I also think game week 38, Brentford away, he's going to play that game as well. For me, I just feel 6 million for the Man City striker is unbelievable value. And I feel like we'll obviously find out as the week goes on as to what the lineup's going to be. There'll be maybe some leaks going into Game Week 38 as well. But I just feel like with all the Man City rotation there could be, midfield and defence could be all over the place. You just got to think Alvarez, because he hasn't had as many minutes as he maybe should have during the Premier League this season. You got to think he gets a good amount of minutes, and his underlying numbers are really good. His price is really good. Obviously, Man City are really good. I think he's a good option. Now, my next player doesn't feature in the top for expected points, and I think that's sort of guided by the fact he's got, on paper, quite a difficult fixture, Man United away. But I think there are a lot of factors to consider about Alexander Mitrovic and Man United. Given that Man United don't necessarily have anything to play for, I think they could be rotated, like the likes of Varane, maybe Shaw, Lindelof. They might be rested for the FA Cup final, which makes me think Mitrovic has got a good chance against Man United away to get some attacking returns. Obviously, he's a 90-minute man. He's guaranteed to start for them. He's their best player, takes the penalties. And I remember it was mostly when Andreas Pereira was in the team, but it seemed like from every corner kick that Fulham got, they were targeting Mitrovic's head with every single one of them. And I think just pre the ban as well, he proved he could score against anyone and match up well against any centre-back in the league. And I feel like whoever plays in that defence for Man United, which I do expect to be rotated around for 38, you got to think Mitrovic has got a chance in that game. And for me, I think if you're chasing, or maybe if you're not, you just want a safe starting striker to maybe replace someone that's a bit of a doubt in your team, Tony, for example, I think Mitrovic is a great option. And with this final feature, I'm not saying, as I did in my previous video, I'm not saying to sell players from these teams, but I feel like if you're looking at making transfers or plans for Game Week 38, you'd want to try to avoid bringing in players from teams that don't really have anything to play for, because I'd expect certainly Man United, Newcastle maybe as well, with top four wrapped up, to make some pretty heavy rotation. They can afford to play some youth players in their final game because they've got nothing to gain, nothing to lose from whatever they do. Their place in the league is secure. They're safe in whatever objectives they had. And it's the same with Wolves, Crystal Palace, Chelsea. I just don't trust Chelsea in general. Forest and Bournemouth, they're all safe. So I think the argument can be made for them as well. So in general, I think the teams to be targeting this week with your captaincy armband, although I've just said Salah for that, but I think you can see my point with Salah. But the teams to be targeting, at least with transfers in, are the ones with something left to play for. And I think these teams in general don't really have too much to play for anymore. And for that reason, I'd look to other teams with something to play for. All right, and that's the end of the video. Getting a bit emotional, this. The final installment of all the videos of my usual weekly series. If you enjoyed that and found it useful, please leave me a like rating. And if you're new around here and enjoying my videos, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button below. Let me know what you think of the top expected points players and maybe who you're going to transfer in, who your captain's going to be, just your overall thoughts for Game Week 38. Let me know in the comments and I'll try and get back to you. Well, I'll try and respond to every single one, basically. And I'll see you in the next video.